Good evening, children. Today we are going to see about the gross domestic product and its growth. So we have already dealt with what is gross domestic product, isn't it? You must be knowing. But then too, I'll give a small introduction about this and then let us proceed. So gross domestic product is nothing but the total value of the final goods produced in a country for the welfare of the people. So that is known as the gross domestic product. That is, they will value the gross production done for the welfare of the people. That is known as the gross domestic product. So what is its growth and development? We must know what is economics and we must know its growth and development. So what is economics here? Economics is nothing but the public expenditure done by the government. How the government expends for the welfare of the country or welfare of the citizen. That is known as your economic growth and development. So here, as per this economist Amartya Sen, he is very great economist. You must have heard of this person, isn't it? So what we are going to study here, according to this particular economist, what he said is economic growth is nothing but economic development, and which means the same, growth and development, which means the same, isn't it? We must have thought about it. What is the great difference between a growth and a development? But there is some difference here, especially when you are going to deal with economics. There is a difference for the growth and development, and this has been assigned or this has been created by the great economist Amartya Sen. What he told, as for this United Nations, he saw this economic development, it focuses not only on man's materialistic need, but it focuses on the overall development or rise in the living standard of the people. What is this living standard? A new word, isn't it? You must not heard of it, or you must have heard it in Tamil. What is it? Living standard அப்படின்னா நம்மளுடைய தினப்படி நம்ம என்ன செய்யறோமோ அதுக்கு பேரு living standard. Whatever we are doing it in our day-to-day routine, how we are going to improve it, how we are going to develop, that is known as the living standard of the people. So it focuses on the overall development in the rise in living standard, how we are going to rise our, how he is going to give a development, how he is going to change, what kind of a job he is doing, and what are his improvements or what are his increments that he is going to get, so that he will be able to develop in his life. So that is being studied in this particular thing. So that is also is essential. Why that is essential? As I stated earlier, we are going to produce the product, or we are going to take into consideration the value of the total sum up of the citizens. So you must know the development of each and every citizen. If you are not going to know this, then you will not be able to value it. So you must be able to know the growth and development of both, of all the citizens in the country. So now we will go on to what is economic growth. Then we will go on to what is economic development, so that you will be able to make a differentiation over there. What is economic growth? It is a quantitative measure which considers the rise in the output produced in an economy. What is the output produced? That is the final goods, as stated earlier. It is the final goods produced in an economy or in the nation for a particular period, and its monetary value. You are going to value it in money wise, okay, according to the money. So it is known as quantitative measurement. So what are the key parameters here? Key parameters means what? Key parameters means main focus. You have to focus on this particular thing. What is it? For the economic growth in an economy, or it's a gross domestic product. So when you are going to calculate gross domestic product, you must know your economic growth. That is, you have to measure, that is quantitative part of the output produced in an economy. That is known as economic growth. So what is now, or when you are going to calculate this, how far it is going to use? That is, by calculating what we are going to do, what we are going to gain. By calculating this gross domestic product, we are going to know the nation's income, national income, as we have early studied national income. So when we want to calculate national income, you have to include this gross domestic product also in this national income. In order to include there, you must measure it in a quantitative purpose. And gross national product, it helps in measuring not only this, it also helps in measuring the actual size of the economy. What is the size here? You cannot just measure and say 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter. That cannot be the size. That is not there. Here, we are going to explain how far the money that has been supplied in a country has been utilized by the citizen of the country to produce the product of for the welfare of the people. So that is known as the measuring the actual size of an economy. So here you cannot just measure and say 1 meter long, 1 centimeter long. You cannot measure it in that way. You cannot use mathematical terms over there. So what is this kind of a measurement is? This kind of measurement is nothing but the measuring of quantitative measure. What is quantitative measure here? The total output produced in a particular economy or its monetary value, how much money has been invested in production of the citizens. So, what is the total income of the citizen and total income of the citizen? Same way, how far the income has been utilized for the production and how far this production helps in the growth of an economy. How far this grows? Because see, let me tell you what it is. See, if you are going to have a seed, okay, you are going to plant it, okay. When you plant it, you will water it, you will manure it, and then it will start producing some growth over there. Same way, what the government expects or what is this particular thing? Why do we all calculate all these things? Because we must know our economic development. This will be given to this will be taken into consideration for us to take an estimation or compare with the other countries also, how far we are going. You must have heard, children, what is it? That is, whenever we are going to talk about our economy, we say, or whenever we are going to talk about our country, we say that this country is a developing country. Why we say it is a developing country? Because when you take into consideration USA, what they say, USA is a developed country. What is a developed country over there? Why there is a difference over there? How they are able to differentiate all these things? You must have thought, isn't it? The question mark lies over there. How can they differentiate these two things? This USA has been stated as a developed country and our India is stated as a developing country. How they are going to compare this? How well they are able to compare this? By calculating this GDP, that is our gross domestic products, which helps in the economic growth. So that is the main word over there. Quantitative measure, produced, output produced in an economy. So these two words, quantitative measure and output produced, these two words are very important over there. So you must have a very clear-cut idea. Okay, I think you would have understood what is economic growth. Next, we will go on to economic development. Economic development means it has got a broader sense over there. So, which take into account the increase in the production level or the output of an economy along with the improvement of the living standard of its citizen. So, what is the living standard? It is not only the output alone or it is not only the production. You have to take into consideration one more thing for development. What is it? It is the living standard of the citizen. What is the living standard? Living standard here means that is all the citizens, the income of the citizen or the per capita of the citizen must be taken into consideration. That is, whenever we are going to have a per capita income, I would have explained what is per capita income. Tani manida varumanam Tamil. அப்போ தனி மனித வருமானத்தையும் இதில் இன்க்ளூட் பண்ணணும். You have to take into consideration the per capita income of the each and every citizen. That is known as the living standard of the citizen. How will you calculate the per capita income? As stated earlier, you have to divide the national income by the total population. If you are going to divide by this, then you will get your per capita income. So, if you know the per capita income, that value has to be added up with the value of the GDP. So that will give you a, so we were talking about economic growth and economic development. So what is economic development here? It projects a broader sense, which means it has to have a, there will be an increase in the production level or the output of an economy along with the improvement in the living standard of the citizen. So I was explaining what is living standard. What is living standard? Living standard means a rise in your development. Each and every citizen has to have some development in his life. So that is known as his living standard. To be very exactly speaking, it is per capita income. What is per capita income here? It is nothing but national income divided by the total population. So you will be getting a value over there. Even that has to be included for the development. Not only our GDP, even the economic development has to be included our day-to-day activities, the development in our day-to-day activities. That is the sense over there called as living standard of the citizen. Next is you have to focus mainly on the human development index. Special tool has been given over there as human development index. Human development index is nothing but it is the real development of an economy. So is economic development is not a real development, even that is a development. But here you are going to talk about human also. Whatever we are doing it in the previous things, no, we used to calculate only GDP alone. We never used to include this human development and all. So it is all a recent developments here. So what is it? You have to include your human resources, because as far as India is concerned, whenever we are going to talk about India, India has a very great source called as human resource, wherein this source is not available in other countries. They may say that we are developed country, we are having this much of resources over there. But here in India, you have got different resources, and our main advantage is human resource. Our population itself is a very great resource for us. We never realize that. We always have we take into the account, or we think only that our population is a disadvantage. No, it is not at all a disadvantage. It is an advantage. Now we have changed. The economy has changed. We are not in the past histories. We are now in the present. So when we are in the present, we always think about our human development. So this has to be given a very important part. This plays a very important part in our economic development. So human resource is also a very great calculation or a measurement that has to be included in our GDP. Now let us go on to the next thing or the next heading called wherein you are going to make a difference between the economic growth and economic development. So what is the real difference? You must know. What is the real difference between a growth and a development? Actually, when we are speaking in normal terms, we used to say that growth and development are the same thing. Then why should we make a difference here? Here, it is very important to make economic, because economy always depends upon the measurements of the each and every individual. So here we say economic growth is a positive and quantitative change, and economic development is not a quantitative, it is a qualitative. So qualitative here means you are going to talk about the living standard, that as stated earlier, our human resource development and our living standard, that will be included in the economic development. But in economic growth, it is only our quantitative change of the output of the economy. So that is the first difference here. I'll read out. It will be very useful for you. Definition and meaning. Economic growth, it is the positive quantitative change in the output of the economy in a particular period. But here economic development means it is considers the rise in the output in an economy along with the advancement of HDI, that is Human Development Index, also which includes the considers in the rise in the living standards, advancement of our technology, and also our advancement in happiness. Overall happiness also is taken into consideration. See the difference there. Here we are just having only quantitative measure. Here you are going to measure your happiness also. Your happiness also is involved in the economic development. Are we able to measure our happiness? Yes, it is possible. How? We'll learn it in a detailed thing in our next chapter. How we are going to have a how you can measure your happiness also, or happiness index also can be measured for the development of a nation. So that will be detailed, there you will be having a detailed explanation how this will be taken into consideration. Next difference is wherein the economic growth is it is very narrow. It is very narrow concept. You are not going to think in a broader sense. But here economic development always involves a broader concept. Next, it is quantitative, it is qualitative. Next thing is wherein you have got your scope. Here you are going to include only your rise in the GDP, GNP, and your other incomes will be taken into consideration. Here there will be rise in your expectancy rate, death rate, infant improvement, literacy rate. All these rate will be taken into consideration for the economic development. So each and every aspect is very important for a economic development. See the child rate. Infant means here child. Child improvement. How a child is improving. How a child is studying. So that is why we insisted on the new education policy also, isn't it? Our Prime Minister has introduced a new education policy. For the reason is even the child has to grow. He has to grow. So that is the intention of doing all these things. So when you are able to compare, when he want to compare your economic development, whether we are developing or not, we are still saying that we are in a developing stage. We have to reach our developed stage, isn't it? Even India has to be called as a developed country. So for this, all these policies and formulations has been done. All these changes has been done. So even the infant improvement, infant here means child, nothing but the child's improvement, and literacy rate. See, that is very important. What is literacy rate? Education level, how well we are educated. That is also is important to calculate the economic development. So next is term. We are going to talk about the term. It is a very short term. Economic growth is very short term, and economic development is a long term in nature. And applicability, here you are going to, economic growth is applied for the developed countries and economic development is applied for the developing countries. Example, our own developed nations are USA, Japan and all is called as developed nations. Next, we will go on to measuring and techniques. Here you will be having a increase in our national income. There you are going to compare your increase in the real national income. So that word real is the difference over there. Real national income and our per capita income. Both will be taken into consideration. So per capita income will be taken for economic development. Here you will be taking only national income. Growth, in economic growth it is national income. In economic development it is per capita income you are going to take. Next is your expectancy or your frequency of the occurrences. How often we are going to compare, how often we are going to judge, or how often we are going to say that we had a growth or we had a development. So what is that frequency level over here? It is just as far as economic growth is concerned, it is for a period of time. We calculate either quarterly or half-yearly. But for economic development, it is a continuous process. You don't calculate for one particular year. This year it is over. Next year some other development. No, it is not like that. Development goes on and on and on and on. So it is a continuous process. But here, as far as economic growth is concerned, you are going to talk about only for a specific period of time. That is the main difference over there. How far the government is involved in this? What is the help or what is the contribution of the government here? So, if as far as economic growth is concerned, the government will automatically they may not have any revenue or requirement of a government support is not essential as far as economic growth is concerned. But for an economic development, especially when we are talking about the standard of living, literacy rate and life expectancies, all these things has to be taken into consideration with the help of our government. So the government will be a very important tool as far as economic development is concerned. But for economic growth, government does not interfere that much. It will interfere, but the interference will not be there only for a certain period of time. It will interfere and then it will do its job. But for as far as economic development is concerned, for each and every part of it, your government will start interfering. So that is the main difference between the economic growth and economic development. I think you would have understood what is the difference between the economic growth and the economic development. Now, let us go on to the next heading. How far there is a support from the, especially for our Indian development. That is important, isn't it? We have to talk about our own country. When we are going to compare, we will compare. But we know, you must know how far our India has been developing. Actually, when we are talking about this development part of it, we have, see, you must know what they have written. There are 700 million Indians under the age of 35. So that is the demographic. What is a demographic look? Wherein the small youngsters will be taken into consideration. Their contribution is very important for the economic development, because we have to say in the very coming future, very fast growing is essential. So for that reason, we must have more number of youngsters to take part in our development. So that is why we say we have taken into consideration the under the age of 35, we have got 700 million citizens are there under this particular group, and then they, in the next 20 years, we will be reaching our goal. There will be a very great transition in our economy. So you will be able to share this, and this particular age, they will be able to work 58% to 64% will be there. For the last 2 decades, they have been working and they have been sharing their income. So we were explaining about the demographic transition. Demographic transition is nothing but the age groups. So when we are talking about this age group, under the age of 35, there are 700 million Indians who are working, and by the end of this decade, last 2 decades, what they have presented is about 58% to 64% they have shared, and they have increased the share of working, wherein they have opted for working. That is the age, under the age of this 35, they started working at a very vigorously. They were working for the development of our own country, because whenever we are going to talk about this development, it is not only increase in the infant rate or infant development or our own literacy level. That is all it is not a big thing. With the help of the literacy level, we have to improve, we have to go for the next stage. So what is our next stage is, you have to go in for the job. So the person working under this particular age of 35 were vigorous during the last 2 decades. Okay, so this is how they are going to support for our Indian development. See now, Human Development Index, that is a great explanation which has been given by our Mahmood ul Haq. This is a person from he is a Pakistani economist. In 1990 only, this particular Human Development Index has been developed. Before that, we will not taken into consideration. As stated earlier, we will not take into consideration the human resource at all. But now we are going to take the human resource also, which is our own pride to say. We should be very proud to say that India has got a very great human resource. So with the help of this, how far we are going to improve our economy, that has been designed by this particular person, Mahmood ul Haq. He is a Pakistani economist, and at the United Nations, he introduced this particular index called Human Development Index. In this, what he stated is, that is the life expectancy at the birth, adult literacy rate, and the standard of living also must be measured in a logarithmic function of GDP, and it has to be adjusted towards the purchasing power of the party. Logarithmic function, GDP, you'll be knowing. Living standard, I told you. And what about this purchasing power? One more new word you are going to learn, that is purchasing power. What is this purchasing power? My capacity, one single individual's capacity to buy the product. I might earn an income. For example, let me tell you like this. See, I have got 10 rupees in my hand. Okay, I have earned with just doing some job, I have earned some rupees 10. I'll take a minimum amount so that it will be easy for you to understand. So rupees 10 is in my hand. With the help of this rupees 10, I must know what is my purchasing power. If I go to the shop and I want one particular, I am in need of something, because all these things will be taken into for the human development. That is need, necessity. That is also is important. What is necessity for me? See, if I am a student, for me, books, pencils, all these are very important, because I have to go to the school, I have to listen to the teacher, I have to write something, I have to take the notes and all. So this books and pencils are very important as far as a student is concerned. Same way, this 10 rupees is in the hand of a farmer. What is his requirement? That will change, isn't it? There will be a change. If this 10 rupees is in the hands of a farmer, what will the farmer do? What will be his thought? His thought will be about his crop only. He'll be thinking about his crop. What is that crop essential? What kind of a soil that has to be placed over there? What kind of a seed that I can buy with rupees 10? So that is the purchase. There the difference lies over there. Purchasing power depends upon each and every individual, because purchasing power means the capacity to buy the product according to his satisfaction. That is also is very important. It is not just you go into the shop and then just you buy it, then go. No, it is not like that. Whatever I am having rupees 10, okay, for me this is happy, I'll just buy this and go. No, that happiness is not taken into consideration. What kind of a happiness is essential? That happiness which gives me satisfaction. That is also is very important. If I am going to purchase, see, I like sweets very much, or I like chocolates very much. If I am going to have 10 rupees, immediately what will I think? If the 10 rupees is placed in a child's hand, what will the child think? The child will do immediately go and buy the chocolate, because it loves eating chocolate. So the purchasing power here differs from one person to another person, one citizen to another person. So this person, that is our Mehboob told that even that has to be considered for the human development, has to be considered for our GDP, for our growth. Because whenever we are going to talk about this development, it is not only the monetary part of it. These are all a small happiness wherein you cannot measure them in monetary terms. It is intangible. You can just feel it. That's all. The happiness can be felt, isn't it? If I am going to eat a sweet, what is that I am going to gain? What is the satisfaction that I am going to gain? Yes, very good. It is just a sweet. That's all. That is all. My mouth will be watering. That's all. That is the happiness that I am going to get. That happiness, can it be measured? No. Yes, you are right. It cannot be measured. Why it cannot be measured? Because that is a satisfaction gained by the individual, and from each and every individual, it will differ. Some people may like sweets, some people may not like sweets. If you are going to go and give sweets to the person who are having sugar, for example, what will they say? Immediately they will deny. They say, no, I have sugar, so I will not take up. So is that going to give a satisfaction to them? No, that is not going to give a satisfaction. So the purchasing power does not arise over there. So the purchasing power has the great difference between each and every person. Even that has to be taken into consideration for the development of the company, of the country. So when you are going to say, so India now, what he explained is, India climbed to one spot to 130 out of 189 countries in the latest human development ranking released. So we are placed in the 130th place. Okay, under 189 countries, we are placed. India is placed in the 130th place, wherein he said that is especially between 1990 to 2017, there is a very remarkable increase in this particular human development, as stated earlier. So that is why we insisted that human development index is also essential, that even that has to be taken for the economic development in a country. I think you would have understood, stating that there is one thing called as people out of poverty. They were driven up so that they will also increase their income. It has been eradicating. Here we are just eradicating these poverties here. Okay, even that will be taken into consideration for our calculating the GDP. So thank you.